In this list, we'll be ranking the top 10 ice spells in Wizard 101 history. As per request though, I will be leaving out the obvious spells such as blades and traps, as those are pretty much a given. Alright, so number 10 we have Reindeer Knight. Reindeer Knight is a spell that costs 3 pips and 1 ice pip, and has the effect where it would do a 295 ice damage to all enemies and then a 265 damage dot over the course of 3 rounds to all enemies. So in total you're getting 560 damage, and the overtimes can deal with annoying shields. It has the same pip cost as Count Cocula, meaning that it can be casted on turn 1 and can be a solid turn 1 AoE option. Granted, it's not the best turn 1 AoE option, but it definitely is worth playing in some instances. The only thing that's weird is that when enchanting this spell, it gets split between the initial damage and the damage overtime, which I don't think should be the case. If it wasn't like this, then this spell might be a bit higher, but still overall Reindeer Knight is pretty solid and a good way to start off the list. At number 9 we have Tower Shield. Tower Shield is a spell that costs 0 pips and has the effect where it simply places a minus 50% universal incoming damage shield on anybody you choose. The reason why Tower Shield is on here is simply because of how iconic it is. In OG PvP or in like low level PvP from back in the day, Tower Shield was a must in any match. Since in low level PvP people didn't really have Pierce. Also, fun fact, back in the early days of PvP, it followed the normal rules of the game's combat, as seen when playing normal PvE. It wasn't full turn based like how it is today. So if you were going from second, you could actually get your match just ruined by a perfectly timed Tower Shield from your opponent. It was a problem for sure, and even in the context of PvE, just seeing the spell get played is always annoying. At higher levels, of course, you can easily get 30, 40, 50 Pierce, so it becomes not much of a threat. But I felt as though it would be criminal to not give Tower Shield a shot in this video, as it's just very iconic. We all know the annoyance of Tower Shield. At number 8 we have Stum Block. Stum Block is a spell that costs 0 pips and has the effect where it places 2 stun blocks on yourself. So similar to Tower Shield, Stum Block was a must-have in PvP back in the day. And even today, whenever I sometimes tune into some PvP nowadays, Stum Block is still played. Naturally, getting stunned in this game is very annoying and very oppressive. A lot of times it can cost you the match even. But what also makes Stum Block so cool is that it's immune to like positive ward destruction. So like let's say you're fighting a boss that gets rid of shields, i.e. Yevgeny gets a mention here because I hate him. Stun Block doesn't trigger his cheat, and when the minions use their shield removal cheat, Stun Block doesn't apply either. It's unaffected by earthquake, etc. Which is why I think it's so good. It's a layer of protection you can place at the beginning of a fight, and at the very least, you can guarantee you won't get stunned when fighting annoying stun heavy schools like Myth or Ice. Alright, at number 7, we have Frost Giant. Frost Giant is a spell that costs 7 pips and has the effect where it will first do 570 AoE damage, then AoE stun the enemy team for a turn. Now, before the buff, this spell probably would be lower or wouldn't even make the list, but they buffed the damage from 475 to 570, which I don't know why they didn't just make it 575. King's Eye, y'all are weird for this. But anyway, now it's a very solid AoE option and is pretty much going to be your boss fight staple AoE between like level 48 when you get the spell to say level 108 when you get Snowball Barrage. And even still in a lot of situations, Frost Giant is preferable because Shadow Pips are annoying. Disclaimer that any chance I get to rag on Shadow Pips, I will. Now, if like 80% of the bosses in this game weren't stun immune, then Frost Giant might be higher. But as it stands right now, it's still a solid AoE. It's just the add-on stun just sucks, because for some reason King's Eye made like 60% of the bosses in this game just completely stun immune. Alright, at number 6 we have Blizzard. Blizzard is a 4-pip spell that has the effect where it will deal 250 to 290 damage to all enemies. There's not much I need to say about Blizzard. I mean, it's gonna be your go-to turn 1 kill fast PvE AoE hit for a very long time, until you require a spell that I'll mention later on this list. Now, when you do get this spell at level 26, you won't be able to immediately just start one-shot first turn killing everything, because you won't have the gear for that. Granted, enchants do exist, but then you have to worry about pip chance, and you're not gonna have 100% pip chance at level 26. But once you get to level 56-ish, where you can get Winter Tusk crafted, or level 60 to where you can get Waterworks gear, then you can start turn 1 one-shotting mobs no problem, as long as you have the right gear. And like I said, it'll be your staple AoE for a long time, and for good reason. Alright, at number 5 we have Abominable Weaver. Abominable Weaver is a spell that costs 5 pips when Shadow Pip, and has the effect where it will first deal 790 to 910 damage and then place a minus 50% incoming damage shield on you, or just a tower shield basically. So Abominable Weaver is still to this day Ice's best single target hit, to be honest. Like, yes, Sign of Ice is stronger from a purely numbers perspective, but by the time you save up 11 pips, you'll probably have a Shadow Pip by then, and then you can just cast Abominable Weaver, get a shield in return, and deal similar damage while saving half your pips in the process. Also, you know, it's better than Woolly Mammoth, Lord of Winter, King Art, etc. I would argue that Abominable Weaver is pretty much just one of 2 single target ice spells that is worth using once you get it. The second one will be mentioned later on in this list. King Art is a joke. Lord of Winter's effect should be slightly stronger in my opinion to warrant 10 pips. Woolly Mammoth is okay, but like half the enemies in this game, like I said, are just stun immune for no reason, so you get the point. Also, do I even need to mention how busted pre-nerf Abominable Weaver was? To put into perspective as to how infamously broken it was in not only PvE, but especially initially PvP. I didn't even do PvP like at all during the time that this thing was running the meta, and even I knew that this thing was running the meta because the community was that appalled by this spell. All right, number 4, we have Shadowhorn. Shadowhorn is a spell that costs 5 pips, 1 Shadow Pip, and has the effect where it will deal 790 to 110 damage initially, and then taunts you for 3 turns, but who cares about taunts? I say initially because with Spell Element, Shadowhorn does the most single target damage that Ice has. Even though initially, yes, it does pretty much the same exact damage as Abominable Weaver. We can all agree that Spell Elements and casual players don't really go hand in hand that well, but this is an exception because the 7-pip version of Shadowhorn legit just does more than Scion of Ice. Granted, Scion of Ice does have the add-on where if you cast a spell while at 90% of your max HP, then you will deal double the damage. But majority, if not all the time, by the time you get 11 pips, unless you have a healer on your team, you will definitely be below that 90% threshold. Also, I'm just now realizing this, but as we move forward, you're gonna notice that Ice has like really strong shadow hits, arguably the best shadow hits in the game. All right, at number 3, we have Freeze Ray. Freeze Ray is a spell that costs 6 pips initially and has the effect where it will do 765 to 845 damage to all enemies. The reason why I said initially is because when we add spell elements to the mix, their damage is ridiculous. At maxed out spell elements on the top path, you can do 930 to 1030 damage. But even without spell elements, it still does very good damage. If we're talking Freeze Ray with spell elements at 8 pips, then this spell would be number 2 on this list. Regardless though, Freeze Ray is still very powerful. And I would say Freeze Ray is definitely Ice's second best AoE in the game. At number 2, we have Snowball Barrage. Snowball Barrage is a spell that is a damage per pip spell where it would do 95 damage per pip to all enemies. So like I said, if Freeze Ray originally came like this, you know, the 8-pip version that requires spell elements to unlock, then it would actually be in this slot over Snowball Barrage. Unfortunately though, because of this, Snowball Barrage is just slightly better. And I mean very slightly better, like it's a very, very small, minuscule amount better. Now, since Snowball Barrage is the first shadow AoE hit you get, I can see situations where maybe your Blizzard or Frost Giant doesn't do enough damage to kill, and Snowball Barrage can clean up afterwards. Since as long as you have a Shadow Pip, you're good to go. It's very much worth to run 1 in your deck for sure. Like your normal hit deck can consist of like obviously 2 blades, a sharpen, epic enchant, you know, Snowball Barrage, Frost Giant, and a Blizzard. Or you can take Blizzard out and just keep Frost Giant if you want. I don't know. But yeah, anything of that nature is definitely worth running. And yes, I'm gonna go ahead and argue here, Snowball Barrage is Ice's second best spell for sure. All right, and at number 1, we have Count Cocula. Count Cocula is a spell that costs 3 pips and a myth pip, so it can be casted on turn 1, and it simply has the effect where it does 400 damage to all enemies. This is Ice's best AoE spell in terms of usability, since once you do get this spell, it becomes your go-to PvE kill things fast as possible spell. Snowball and Freeze Ray both require Shadow Pips. Frost Giant can't be casted on turn 1, and Blizzard finally just gets outclassed, because for the longest time, Blizzard was the go-to kill things quick PvE spell that Ice had. Well, I mean, unless you could get your hands on Reindeer Knight, but also you don't get Count Cocula until Wallaroo. So up until then, Blizzard would still get used if you needed a turn 1 just kill things quick spell. Like I said, if you can't really get your hands on Reindeer Knight, then from level 26 to, you know, Wallaroo, Blizzard is just your go-to turn 1 AoE smackdown hit. Which, with that being said, Count Cocula is Ice's best spell in the game for sure. And I would just go ahead and say is the best Ice spell of all time. I mean, I guess if you want to put pre-nerf a bomb here, then yeah, I guess maybe that could be the best Ice spell of all time. But anyway. All right, and that's the list. Are there any I missed or forgot about? Let me know down in the comments below, and have a great rest of your day.